right, shalom, shalom, peace, whichever you prefer. All right. It's your brother IQAhmath, IQ, also as I'm known, coming back at you with another video in regards to a particular topic that's kind of been brought out ad nauseum from different angles. But it's something that I like to call the Scrabble Gang and dealing with the LGBTQ movement agenda. Name it what you want to. I'm going to acknowledge them as a Scrabble game because you know how in Scrabble you put a couple of letters together and you got to make some words out of it. So that's exactly what they're doing when it comes down to the agenda that's been laid out by this particular movement. And it's powered by Satan, is being endorsed by his servant, the so-called white man, and it's been weaponized against those that believe in the scriptures, anybody that has a particular moral stance, and it's letting you know the direction that Babylon, also aka spiritual Sodom and Gomorrah, is going and has been continually going on to. So again, before we begin, I'm gonna give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Yahweh Shai. That's the name of the Most High and the name of His only begotten Son. Those who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, whose true name is Hamashiach Yahweh Shai, the anointed Savior of Israel and Israel alone. All right, I want to always give all praise, honor, and glory in that fashion. So I'm not gonna delay with it. I don't know how long this information is gonna stay on YouTube or what have you, because there's gonna be some information that comes out or that I'm gonna be presenting that may be harmful in the community standards or whatever the case may be. But you know what? The truth got to be told, and we got to get it down all the way to the nitty gritty, as they speak, as they say. So I kind of want to put my little spin on the information as the Spirit of the Most High presented it to me to bring out with additional facts, information. I'm going to be speaking about things as is based upon not only government agenda, but chemically, even looking at it from perspectives of upbringings and raisings. We're going to dispel the myth, I should say, as it pertains to, one proclaiming to say that they're born a particular orientation. Okay. That's not the truth. Can't stand by it. And I won't allow that lie to be portrayed. All right. First of all, we're going to always get to the scriptures first. Let's go to Revelations 11 and 8. Get to the scriptures first, get to some prophecy, get to some understanding regarding what it is for this particular kingdom has in store for the captives here in Israel. The so-called blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, you're the captives here in the Americas, all right? Also known as the children of Israel, the lost sheep that the Most High has called back into the spirit of repentance to bring you back into the spirit and the fold of righteousness and unity under the law, statutes, and commandments, under the guidelines of our King, Hamashiach Yahweh Shai. That's what you've been brought back onto. That's what you need to wake up to, okay? And get out of the whole paradigm and the lies that's been put out there in front of your faces. All right, Revelation 11 and 8, it says, and their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. So now we got to get an identifying factor to say that there's a particular great city, which you can also look at in Revelation 14 and the 8th verse. It lets you know that Babylon is the great city. All right. So we're talking about, and I'm going to just read that too. It says, there followed, this is Revelation 14:8, and there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, the great city, because she had made all nations all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. So we're looking at a particular city, Babylon the Great. Babylon of old has been fallen. Okay. Now we're talking about a new age Babylon that's coming up and moving in the same spirit of ancient Babylon. Babylon comes from the Hebrew word babal, meaning confusion. So we're looking at a place that is going to be having everyone in spiritual derision and confusion. And it's a great city where many nations have came and they all want to partake. They all want a piece of the what? The pie, the witch's brew, that poisonous drink that gets served up by the harlot, the great harlot known in Revelation 17, right here, America. Okay, this is where the people want to be able to go take their little sips. All right, so they can all get their indoctrination of poison. It's only here in America. Don't they call it a piece of the American pie, a piece of the pie? People all want a little taste. And that's what the nations do. They leave off their customs, their religions, they leave off their families, their doctrines, everything that comes along with it, dress codes, you name it. You know, this is the only place where a Muslim can come from a conservative country, come over here and start stripping and smoking cigarettes and weed and everything else and want to live the MTV and the TV lifestyle, and they leave off of all of their moral standards. Why? Because over here in America, once you take a little sip, you get twisted. Same way that our people do. Our people completely acting out of the norm. We're a spiritual people that's supposed to be based and rooted in morals, moral standards, civil standards, you know, ceremonial practices. We lose all of that and start buying into the foolishness that America presents before us. So there's a great city known full of confusion where all the nations are coming to come drink the wrath of the wine of the fornication. Okay, a place laden in fornication. We're going to see more about that. Jumping back over to Revelation 11:8, it says, "And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city." Well, whose dead bodies? The dead bodies of the saints of the Most High. You can read that in the book of Psalms 50, verse 5. Also in Psalms 148, I believe is verse 14. It tells you that the saints of the Israelites, this is where the bodies have been buried at. You know, the blood is still crying out from the ground from over the 77 million North American Indians who were destroyed, you know, through colonization, through germ warfare, through the sword, through plague, okay, through false peace treaties. Over 300 peace treaties were signed and broken by the so-called white man, living up to his devilish standard. Okay, now we're also talking about, we ain't even talking about the 60 odd million Central Americans, South Americans, the Carib Islands. You know, all of those still swarming with the blood of the saints. Coming over here on the Middle Passage alone, you're talking about over 100 million died in the travels through cargo slave ships, them wretched cargo slave ships where we were packed in like sardines, defecating on each other, coming out with scurvy and all kind of diseases, vomiting on each other. I mean, you're talking about inhumane conditions at its finest that we came over here, and that we're dead. And the scriptures say our dead bodies are lying in these streets. Do we need to talk about George Floyd? Huh? Philando Castile? You know, what about Tamir Rice? You want to talk about Sandra Bland? You got dead bodies lying in the street right here where worldwide news is being reported upon. Ask George Floyd. Oh, you can't. Why? Because he was killed in the streets. And it went worldwide. You had people all over the country, let alone the world, protesting in spite of seeing dead bodies lying in the streets. Okay. Then we also notice that it in the book of Proverbs, it tells you that he that walketh out of the way of understanding shall remain in the congregation of the dead. So now we're even talking about a place that will poison your understanding. This is the only place where these dead bodies that lied in the streets don't know who they are, don't have a national a language, a culture, have been destroyed for everything. All the lack of knowledge that we have, and we've been given religion, we've been given false identities, we've been given lies. In particular, when it comes down to how we're supposed to be worshiping the Most High. You know, that's when you're out of the way of understanding. And what ends up happening, he says, we shall remain in the congregation of the dead. This is the only place where you're going to see, and I've seen it for myself, where funerals, burials, insurances, and things like that are being posterized in the hood. You know, when you see the little party flyers and stuff like that, I've seen them in the hood where they're talking about, do you need help with a funeral? Posting them up in neighborhoods. Okay? This is where we're at. And it says dead bodies lying in the streets of this great city. This is where we're at, which also is going to have a spiritual characteristic of Sodom. Sodom, meaning the homosexuality. You look at what happened back in the times of Genesis 19, Sodom and Gomorrah. This place encompasses that spirit as well. This is a completely abominable place. This is the only place that can take on 3 different spirits. That lets you know it's possessed. You're talking about the spirit of Babylon. Then it says Sodom, and it said Egypt. So you're talking about a place who's got multiple spirits on them, that's ranging from confusion to sodomy, fornication, you know, adultery, all of these things in one. And it's a place of captivity, bondage, misery. Okay, that's what Egypt stands for: the bondage, the captivity, the misery. Okay, the depression, all of that is all encompassed in this one place. You figure it out. Okay. But it's talking about America for the slow. Now it says, where also our Lord was crucified. Well, somebody said, well, no, Christ was crucified over in Jerusalem, on Mount Calvary. No, we're talking about spiritual. Remember, every context that we were just reading about is spiritual. So how's Yahushua being crucified over here? Through religion, false doctrine. We're talking about this is the only person who had the gall to set himself up to say he is Christ. You don't see a Christ. You don't see the Japanese Christ. Show me where the Chinese Christ is at. How about the Asian? The Arab Christ. The Africans ain't even got that much gall, even knowing that the scriptures tell you that Christ was a dark-skinned man, white woolly hair, red tint to his eyes. The white man is the only one who said, "I'll take on that moniker. I'll say it's me, and I'm gonna have every nation bow down to me." That's crucifixion at its finest. Putting Christ to an open shame is what they do when they do that. Okay, so we're seeing his reputation being. Can you imagine? You're talking about the Savior of Israel, and now that whole narrative has been twisted to say he died for everybody, and it doesn't matter. You're talking about all of the persecution, the torture that he went through, the pulling of his beard, stabbing him under the fifth rib, making him drink vinegar, beating him. Then had to deal with the false allegations, dealing with being put up for sedition, being crucified for sedition, being turned down by his own people who chose a murderer, Barabbas, over him when he had opportunity to be freed, but that was all prophecy. But now, can you imagine that now that whole story has been twisted to say, oh, that was for everybody, anybody, whosoever, as if Christ was that desperate to say, well, I'm going to just kill myself. I'm going to allow myself to be persecuted for whoever wants me. No, that's an act of desperation. How dare you try to put Yahushua in that position to say he's got to be desperate for anybody to accept him? No, there's always been a chosen. There's always been a remnant. There's always been true believers that's going to come back and worship and honor the Father in spirit and in truth. That's who we did it for, not just anybody. Don't get it twisted, okay? So we're seeing an identity of a place that has already been lining itself up with the spirit of Sodom. That's the one I want to concentrate on. That's the one we're going to look at, okay? Now, we're going to move on. Let's go over to Genesis 13:13. Genesis 13, verse 13. And that reads, say, I pray thee, thou art my sister. Oops, that's the wrong one. My bad. Shlaki. 13:13. It says, but the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. Why did I bring that out? Because it's letting you know that the spirit that stands behind sodomy is wicked and sinful. Okay? Don't let anybody say, well, it's their choice. I don't really care if you go. Have you noticed that now? Everybody's got to qualify their statements anymore. If you get that's your business, I don't mind, come on. And knowing deep down inside, they're like, man, I never do that. I'm not with it. But our people sit back and sacrifice themselves, for the sake of being politically correct, trying to stay within the guidelines of the laws of the land, and don't want to stand up for anything that's right. But the scriptures let you know that the men of Sodom, it says, were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly, meaning they go above and beyond. Above and beyond. Sodomites take it to a whole nother level. That's when you see all these little queens running around here, man, the dudes, that's how you even know that this place has been completely twisted. When you have America Top Model and all these other little shows where the gay men are teaching the women how to walk and how to dress and how to be and have their little sex appeal and all of that. How in the hell does that go on? Unless you're in a place of confusion, unless you're in a place that's spiritually driven by Satan, unless you're in a place that willingly allows you to go out there and do all this other foolishness. You got the man busting at the men are down there, what they call the bussies now. I mean, come on, man. This is where we are now, okay? But it lets you know that this spirit in this place is wicked and sinful, exceedingly. Don't forget that. Deuteronomy 32. And we're going to read verse 32. And that reads, for their vine, you know what? I'm going to read up a little bit more, okay? Start at 26. It said, I would scatter them into corners. I will make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. Speaking about the children of Israel, okay? Why? Because of our disobedience. That was part of our judgment. So we're seeing why the children of Israel, Blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, been scattered throughout the four corners of the earth because of our disobedience. And now the remembrance is what was erased. That's why when you read in St. John chapter 14, verse 26, it says that the Holy Comforter will bring all things back to your remembrance. Huh? That's what we're talking about. It's a spiritual thing being brought back into remembrance. It's like you got spiritual amnesia. And now you coming back to wake up and come into the fold of knowing who you are again, what your calling is. Where do you belong in this earth? You know, that's what the Most High is trying to get back into our lives. So he acknowledged and said that he was going to make the remembrance of us to cease from before men. That's why the nations don't recognize you, who you are and who we are. That's why the nations don't respect the fact when we say, you know, we're the true children of Israel. We're the chosen. And they say, oh, no, you're just black. Oh, the black Hebrew, you know, constantly still throwing out the slander. No matter how dignified, how hard we try to stand on our square, they still try to make it sound as if they don't know what they're talking about. The blacks and Spanish, they lost. Niggas and spics, they still over there trying to chase dreams. But see, that's why the Most High put that curse on us. Now it's about remembering. Okay. Now it says verse 27. Were not that I feared the wrath of the enemy, lest their adversaries would have behaved themselves strangely, and lest they should say, our hand is high, and the Lord have not done all this. Okay. 28, it says, for they are a nation void of counsel, neither is there any understanding in them. So it's letting you know how far gone we've gone. We don't have any more understanding. Hosea 4:6 says we've been destroyed for a lack of knowledge. All right. Verse 29. Oh, that they were wise, that they understood this, that they would consider their latter end. Only if we would think about the consequences. Only if we would think about where the Most High was going to take us when it comes down to understanding his judgments. But we don't. You know, we're thinking about in the moment. Just want the quick satisfaction. You know, that's why the Most High told us, don't get caught up with the lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, the pride of life. That's all enmity with the Most High. You know, but what do our people do? They fall in love with it and don't consider the consequences in the end. Verse 30 says, how should one chase 1,000 and put 10,000 to flight, except that rock has sold them and the Most High had set them up? So when people wonder, well, how could that have happened? You know, how can you get 200 slaves on a ship, you know, and it's only being manned by 12 white men? You know, how can, you know, an organized nation of indigenous tribes over here falter, you know, to a lower level army coming over here, what have you? That's why, you know, why did we see, unfortunately, I'm going to call him out. Why did you see Nate Robinson get knocked out by the white boy Jake Paul or John Paul, whatever the hell his name was, and became the laughing stock within social media and the sports world? Because the Most High strips the spirit. You know, so how can one chase 1,000? We're talking about one of the most gifted, most athletic, most powerful, more strategic minds in physical combat and in mental combat, the so-called blacks and Hispanics. Native Americans, you know, how does that happen? It said, unless it's the Most High that did it. Verse 31, it says, for their rock is not as our rock, meaning the nations, those who took us in captivity, said their rock, we don't got the same rock. We ain't got the same rock, okay? Our rock is Yahweh Shai. Their rock is Satan. It says, for their rock is not as our rock, even our enemies themselves being judges. Go ahead. Reading on, it says, verse 32, for their vine, speaking about the nations, it says their vine is of the vine of Sodom. See, that's what flows through their veins. That's the type of blood they want to emanate. That's that witch's brew that they want you to drink. That's the wine. You know, because you're going to have to accept that. You come over here. You can't come from some other countries and come from any particular family backgrounds and strict regimens of family tradition and not be looked at wrong. Now you're looked at as wrong when you calling somebody out, or you're looking at somebody oddly and saying, why are you doing that? Why are you behaving this way? You know, why are you lusting after your same sex? You know, where's your desire to procreate and to continually build up this nation? No, you can't, because the vine, that wine has already been poured. It says, in the fields of Gomorrah, their grapes are grapes of gall. Their clusters are bitter. It's poisonous. You take sips of this. It says their wine is the poison of dragons and the cruel venom of asps. Okay, so we're seeing where that all leads to. You want the wrath of the wine of the fornication? Just know that it's got a little bit of Sodom and Gomorrah mixed up in it. Let alone with the lies and the deception. It's a whole little concoction that's being made up. That's what they're pouring up. Let's go to Isaiah 3:9. Book of Isaiah in the 3rd chapter, 9th verse. And that reads, the show of their countenance doth witness against them, and they declare their sin as Sodom. They hide it not. Woe unto their soul, for they have rewarded evil unto themselves. Now, the Most High, in this particular instance, he's talking about the kings of Judah and their wickedness. But look at the example that the Most High utilized. He said that their sin is as Sodom. They don't hide it. That's why you see the flamboyant, sodomites out there strutting their stuff, doing their thing. The dykes and the studs, going all out. You see females out there with damn wave caps on and sagging their pants just like dudes, trying to wear, taping down their breasts to try to look like men. They on the hormones, trying to get the hair growing on their face. They not hiding it. And you looking at them, you like, come on, what are you doing? Who are you trying to fool? The online catfishing. That's what happens to these poor little suckers online. Looking for love on quarantine, trolling around on Instagram and everywhere else, getting caught up by some dude with a wig on and some filters to make him look like a female. But so they don't hide it. They out there. There's no more closet anymore. It's welcomed, because now if you saying anything against them, you're wrong. You're the one with hate speech. You're the one that needs to be canceled now. Their rights is up. Ours is down, and they piggybacked off of the struggle of the so-called Black and Hispanics of the Civil Rights era, the Native Americans. They piggyback off of it, and now you're pushed out the way while they come in and they gather up all the rights. See, that's how it works. 1 Kings. We'll go to 1 Kings, and we're going to read 14 and the 24th verse. 1 Kings 14:24. That reads, and there were also Sodomites in the land, and they did according to all the abominations of the nations which the Lord cast out before the children of Israel. So here we are in the northern kingdom, excuse me, in the southern kingdom. It said the Sodomites was all over the place, all around the temple, all spreading throughout the land. It said they were all in the land, and they did according to all the abominations of the nation. See, what they bring along with them is every abominable act. They're getting into the fornication. They're getting into the adultery. They're getting into the drug use. They're getting into the reckless behavior. Okay? The orgies, everything else. They bring all of that stuff with them. And they bring in ideologies and philosophies that institute a frame of mind, a thought to saying what and how we live is okay. So all of the abominations come along with this particular weaponized thing known as sodomites. You say anything else, they're gonna stop it. They're gonna flag my channel. It's over with, and I'm just starting. So let me be clear: the Scrabble gang, the LGB, the rest. They're just gonna be known as the Scrabble gang throughout the rest of this this broadcast, okay? And you know what I'm talking about. Again, Scrabble, picking up pieces, couple little letters, you put it together, you make a word out of it. So that's what they do with the acronyms that they got, with all the L to the Q to the all of that. They are playing Scrabble, okay? That's why they're gonna add on to it as they continue on, keep making up more and more orientations. They got a whole new orientation now. They're calling it digisexual. Digisexual. Yeah. What is that talking about? Oh, they're talking about those that's infatuated with the sex dolls. And there's plenty of dudes out there and females who's ordering them up like crazy. Because now, you know what? That's their new companion. They've given up on human-to-human contact. The quarantine got them with quarantine fever. The man says, well, you know what? I can get this one. She's going to give it up to me anytime I want to. She ain't going to talk back. I can do what I want with her. Slap her around, beat her. That's what they're doing. And they're calling that someone who is digisexual now. Forget pansexual, trisexual, bisexual. They just keep adding on. You know, the Scrabble game continues. It continues. So that's why we're in this land of confusion. This is where we're at, Babylon. All right, let's go to Luke. Let's go to Luke, 10th chapter, and then I'm gonna open up this PowerPoint, and I'm gonna start sharing some of the meat of what we're talking about. Just prefacing right now with some scriptures, okay? Luke 10 and verse 11. Luke 10:11, and that reads, even the very dust of your city, which cleaveth on us, we do wipe off against you. Notwithstanding, be ye sure of this, that the kingdom of the Most High is come near unto you. But I say unto you, that it shall be more tolerable in that day for Sodom than for that city. See, that's what Yahweh Shah was acknowledging. He told the disciples. He said, man, if they don't receive you in any of these cities, they don't want to hear the gospel. They don't want to hear the truth. They don't want to hear repentance. They don't want to hear the law. He said, guess what? Dust your feet off and keep it moving. He said, but guess what's going to happen to that city? He said it's going to be more tolerable than what happened in Sodom and Gomorrah than what's going to happen to the place that rejects the word of the prophets. And we all know what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah. Hell, fire, brimstone, destruction. He said that the place that despises that is going to be even worse. So guess what America's got coming to it? That's why you read in Revelation 18, it says it's going to be a perpetual smoking here in Babylon. That's why I said, get out of her, my people, and be not partakers of her sins. Because this place is going down worse than Sodom and Gomorrah. Worse than 1 Corinthians 6 and 9. We're going to read that. First Corinthians 6 and the 9th verse. And that reads, know ye not that the unrighteous shall not inherit the kingdom of the Most High? But, be not deceived, neither fornicators, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor effeminate. So you see all those things connect. Deception said, don't be deceived. Fornicators, idolaters, adulterers, effeminate. You know, the Sodomite culture, they partake in all of that. All of that. Okay. And it said, nor abusers of themselves with mankind. Well, how can you abuse yourself with mankind? How can you do that? Unless you're doing some sort of abusive thing to you, doing things that aren't supposed to be being done. Exit only. Okay, without being graphic. That's abuse. Okay. But it said, even if you're effeminate, you know, there's space for repentance. Don't get it wrong. There's no dead end for somebody who's caught in this particular lifestyle, or somebody that's confused, somebody's trying to figure things out, somebody that could have, came up in a particular household or an abusive situation where they was molested as a young kid. I'm gonna get to all of that later. Okay, let me calm down. But I do want to make sure that my brothers and sisters who are in this particular lifestyle, and I'm not calling it an orientation, it's a lifestyle. It's a mental choice. It's a spirit that you're entertaining. You can repent. You can repent. You know, the scriptures say that all manner of sin to be forgiven except for blasphemy of the Holy Spirit. You have opportunity to repent, and your faith and the grace of the Most High has got to carry you the rest of the way. And you better pray to the Most High that you're forgiven for your sins, just as all of us. You know, but let's get to let me get to this PowerPoint. Let me share my screen. And we're gonna get to this. Okay. All right, so here we got the Scrabble game. I look into the Sodomite conspiracy. All right. So this is what I want to do. I want to kind of open it up so we can look at some of the things as why is it considered a conspiracy? All right. And you see who's on the front lines. Look who's out there. They always got to put a Jake out there in the front. You know, flamboyant as ever. Two of them in the front while the rest of the heathen play the back. They've compromised. You know, they've even stolen a covenant of the Most High, a token of the covenant of the Most High. You know, the rainbow, that was a covenant that the Most High said that he would make with the earth forever, that he would not destroy the earth again by means of a flood. But they take it and say, we won't be destroyed. We're going to live. That's why they wear them flags around. It's a symbol of defiance. It's a symbol to say that we won't be destroyed. We're going to continue on. See how they hijack that? Okay. Now, this right here is a memorandum, okay? And it's called the Jaffe memo. And Frederick Jaffe was the president of Planned Parenthood in 1969. You guys can see up at the top. This is a legitimate document, and it was based upon measures of fertility and population control. That's what Planned Parenthood was concentrating on back in the 60s, as they continually do today. But guess whose population they want to control? Yours, mine, Black, Hispanic, Native Americans. That was their objective. So this is a document that they created, and a proposal that was presented to the U.S. government and Congress by Frederick Jaffe, okay, the vice president of Planned Parenthood. And this was his ideology about what he wanted to do to curve the population. So we see up here examples of proposed measures to reduce U.S. fertility by universality or selectivity of impact. So he's got the different forms of how he's going to do so. He's talking about a universal impact, the social constraints, selective impact, depending on socioeconomic status, economic deterrence, social controls, etc. All right. Number one, they wanted to restructure the family, postpone or avoid marriage, alter the image of the ideal family size. So what they want to talk about, the ideal family size was 2.1 kids. Well, what's the half a kid? Maybe somebody's getting aborted. Okay. That's where they get that from. Restructuring the family size, postpone or avoid marriage. As the brother, what's his name? That's why he's making such a killing off of his channels, Kevin Samuels, as he keeps talking about why women are avoiding getting married, or why they can't find good men and all this other stuff. It's because of the propaganda that's already been presented. And he touched on it. I seen one show he was talking about, how the feminist movement took over the minds of sisters, had them being caught up with chasing degrees, chasing careers, chasing industry, trying to be equal with men. And it ended up putting them in positions to where they were too old to get married, unable to have children because of what they've done to their bodies, and mentally and stressfully, burnt themselves out to where they can't procreate anymore. All of this stuff, but this was all planned. This is all designed. So they wanted to restructure and resize and postpone marriage to avoid from us coming together. Back in the 40s, 50s, 30s, we had strong family structures. We had neighborhoods, businesses, pre-segregation, pre-integration. We had thriving communities, and the family structure was solid. But now what is it? It's nothing. Single parent homes, we know about the curses, Deuteronomy 28, 54 down to 58, 56, when we're reading about single parent homes and all of that. This was all helped along, the process, the system of the beast, was feeding off of the family structure. So they knew that. But now we're talking about compulsory education of the children. So now they also want to be able to implant thoughts into the minds of the children as to what a family should be, when they should be considering getting married, all of this other stuff. Now you got to imagine, you're talking about putting your kids through a system to where now mom and dad is working. If you got both parents in the house, 9 times out of 10, you're under them curses. It's just mama in the house, grandma in the house. For those who were fortunate enough to have both in the house, both of your parents was working most of the time. So guess what? You're going into somebody else's care, somebody else's system of thought and control from preschool all the way up to 12th grade. So you're talking what, 3-4 years old, all the way to 18. Okay, so now we're already talking about somebody's in the care of your child's mind for 15 to 17 years. I started off with preschool. We ain't even talking about daycare. When the baby's born and you get whatever 3 months, a childbearing or child baby bonding and all of that. Now you got to get back to work. It's a lot of mothers out there that's putting their kids in other people's hands at 2 and 3 months old, 4 or 5 months old, working to the bone, getting home, and only have a few hours to bond with the baby. That's what goes on. So as we continually see, the children now are being influenced by something else, another type of education for all of those years. And then they're being told and conditioned that after the 12th grade, you need to go to get to the next form of institutionalized thinking, which is the colleges. So you're either going to go for 2, 4, depending on if you want your master's, you're going for another 6 to 8 years. So now you're talking already 20 plus years worth of indoctrination from another people. But check this one out, though. Hopefully y'all can see this. It says one of the things that they were going to utilize to control world population is to encourage increased homosexuality. That's not a typo. It's not a typo. How can they increase homosexuality unless they have a means to control, a means to create, a means to influence? And I said create. Yeah. They said encourage increased homosexuality. So why do you think that you're seeing on every billboard, every commercial, every movie, every magazine, that there's always some innuendo of how they're always being included? Why the thought is always put into the mind? It's encouraged to increase, to get better, to get bigger. That's what they're doing. Why do they do that? So that they can reduce procreation. They want to stop, the building up of our people. So when you see in the Psalms 83 and it talks about the conspiracy of the nation that's coming against us, that the name of Israel shall be no more in remembrance. Well, how do you do that? You got to be able to cease population growth. You got to cut the seed off. So they do it, with the morning after pill. Then they go ahead, if that ain't working, you got to scrounge up the money. I did a search too, and I encourage y'all to do it too. Look around on the Planned Parenthoods in your neighborhood, or just look around on the map. Just look and say locations of Planned Parenthood. See how many are in white neighborhoods. See how many are in affluent neighborhoods. You're not gonna find them. The closest I seen here in California was Santa Monica, and Santa Monica got plenty of 10 tribes. That ain't even the closest to say. The rest is all out here. You look on the map, and I'm looking at Calabasas, Thousand Oaks. I'm looking at nothing. But leave it to out here. Oh yeah, L.A., Hawthorne, all over the place. Where our people is at, they there, right? But let me get back to the point. Planned Parenthood was involved in creating methods to encourage and increase homosexuality. They figured out ways on how to make homosexuality more popular and even creating homosexuals. Yeah, I'm going on record with saying that. You're going to see in a minute. Educate for family limitation. So they want to tell everybody, limit your family size. You're not ready. You can't have them. You can't afford it. You can't do this. You haven't gone to school yet. You ain't got your degree. Cut off the idea of even trying to have kids. So when you see the sister on Why Did I Think Like a Man, and she was the career woman and, couldn't get her stuff together, struggling, trying to find a man, and she had them have to settle for the cat that was a chef, and not even settle because he was, brother had his skills up and he was trying to do his thing and become an entrepreneur. But in her mind, he wasn't on her level, But nonetheless, that's what it's talking about. Limiting family education. Now, look at this. Fertility control agents in the water supply. Yeah. So when you hear about poison in the water, yeah, we know about the metals. But yes, there are sterilants. They were putting fertility control sterilants in the water. So now when you're wondering why, you and your significant other have been struggling to have babies and all of that, best believe that there has been some chemical tampering going on. And guess what? The white man says, well, don't worry. We got IVF, in vitro. We can do designer babies now using the CRISPR technology, where you can pick out whatever you want. You want your baby to have blue eyes. You want the baby to have a brain of Einstein. You want the baby to be 6'5". And this is the type of lab rats they're trying to create. This is what they're doing. So fertility agents in the water supply and encouraging women to work. See, that's where the divide comes. Not to say that, women can't go out there and need to work and do what they need to do. But at the same point in time, at the cost of what it does of substantially building up a nation. That's what they're doing. All right. If you look over here to the right side, it says payments to encourage sterilization. So monetary rewards. That's why when the scriptures say in Ecclesiastes 7:7 about surely oppression maketh the wise man mad and a gift destroyeth the heart. That's what they know. A Negro will shake his ass for a little piece of change. So will the sister. They doing it for free now. So imagine if them saying, well, you get on this little experimental next day pill. Go out there and have sex and fornicate, see if it works, and we'll pay you. You know how many desperate sisters out there willing to do that? They out there doing it. So payments to encourage sterilization, tell the man, you need to get clipped. Women, go get your tubes tied. They was doing it. They were doing forced sterilizations in the prisons. They did forced sterilizations on Native American women in the 70s. So this is what they're out here doing. So no longer are they paying, but they're actually utilizing guinea pigs of our women that were being incarcerated and the oppressed women in the Native American populations. You can look all that up. Payments to encourage abortion. So they were paying women to get abortions. Payments to encourage contraception. Abortion and sterilization on demand. Allow certain contraceptives to be medically distributed non-medically. So where you can go get it and you ain't got to go through a doctor to get it. Improve contraceptive technology. So Planned Parenthood, the wicked, abominable place that it is, you see what they've been doing since the 60s and probably before that. This is just one document that I was able to dig up that I've had that shows that there has been a measured plan to decrease the population, and it involves utilizing homosexuality as a weaponized tool. Moving on. Here we see Frederick Jaffe. This is off of Wikipedia, letting it be known this was a real dude. He wasn't some made-up figure. This isn't some old crazy information. No, this is a legit dude. Okay, it gives you. He was born in Queens, New York, November 27, 1925. He won all different kind of awards for his quote unquote contributions. Let me read right here. It says Jaffe also consulted with other organizations, among them the National Center for Health Statistics, the National Institutes of Health, the NIH, same ones who's out here running the game plan with the World Health Organization and the CDC, talking about the jab. They're all in cahoots together. Okay. The Commission on Population Growth in the American Future, the Ford and Rockefeller Foundations. Now, do I need to speak on them? Usually, there's no mystery with those cats. So he was in cahoots with the Ford and Rockefeller Foundations, let you know who also was financing and helping Planned Parenthood. Okay. He was posthumously awarded the Margaret Sanger Award. Do we need to talk about her? How she talked about black people are like weeds that need to be rooted out. Everybody now should be kind of hip to her. Margaret Sanger Award. So he was awarded by these people. Planned Parenthood's highest award in 1978 and the Carl S. Schultz Award for Lifetime Achievement for the American Public Health Association. So we're talking about his affiliation with eugenics. We're talking about his affiliation with notorious New World Order figures in the Rockefeller and Ford Foundations, the NIH, talking about medical corruption. So these are all things. So now when you hear this guy come up talking about, let's encourage homosexuality. Let's turn them out. That's going to get one way where we can get these numbers of these people down and we can cut off the seed of Israel. They're not going to say Israel, but guess who's always the ones who was rising above in the midst of affliction? No different than what you read in Exodus, the first chapter, about the more that the children of Israel got afflicted, the more they grew. We're only people who continually strive and continually populate in hell. There's no stopping us. It says, upon the latter presentation, the population section in the APH passed the following resolution. So, look up Frederick Jaffe. You can look him up here and see his background, but he was definitely instrumental in dealing with population control and instituting homosexuality into the mind frames and into the chemical imbalances of people. But we're going to move on. Bisphenol A, okay, BPA. Hopefully some of y'all are hip to this by now. I brought this out years ago. And how this particular chemical that's in a lot of different things is a chemical imbalancer and affects hormones. Okay. How does bisphenol A affect health? Bisphenol A, or BPA, is a chemical found in many hard plastics that we use every day. Higher doses have been linked to infertility. Hello? Infertility and other health problems. Products that contain BPA include water bottles, baby bottles. That's key. See, that's when you get into, I was born this way. I've been feeling like this since I was 2, 3 years old. Okay, moving on. Baby bottles, dental fillings and sealants, dental devices, medical devices, eyeglasses, DVDs, CDs, household electronics, sports equipment. The list goes on and on. Where this particular chemical is in it. And you say, well, IQ, what's in the chemical? What is it? Okay, calm down. Large amounts of BPA are produced each year. It leaches into food and water supplies, and humans are widely exposed to it. Didn't we just get to reading about putting, hold on, maybe I missed it, fertility agents in the water supply? Okay, let me go back. Large amounts of BPA are produced each year. It leaches into food and water supplies, and humans are widely exposed to it. Get the picture? All right, let's move on. Facts on BPA. Here are some key points about BPA. More detail is in the main article. I believe I got this off of WebMD. You can look it up. BPA is present all around us and in the environment and manufactured products. Researchers link exposure to fertility problems. Remember that? Male impotence. Remember that? We're talking about infertility, impotence, population control, restructuring the family, increased homosexuality, all of that. Heart disease and other conditions. Some reports say that the current levels of BPA are low and not dangerous to humans. Of course, some are. Because he wouldn't be the devil if he didn't. Remember, the Most High said, when he speaketh fair, believe him not. So you're going to have counter arguments and say, we can't say it's just that bad. Let's skew the books a little bit and we'll put out the information to say it's not that bad, while the rest are saying it is that bad. But hey, you know what? Don't tell them that. Tips for avoiding exposure include breastfeeding infants and not buying food in plastic packaging. You see where it starts? It said breastfeeding infants. Yes, the Infamil cans that you get from your, the WIC benefit sisters. When you get the Infamil, is the inner lining of the cans got the BPA in it. The baby bottles that they're giving you for free at the WIC stations or wherever you can get them from, got it in it. So when you're heating up the bottle, with the Infamil in, he's shaking it up. Guess what? That plastic is heat, and the BPA seeps into the water, seeps into the food. They're getting a double dose. That's why I suggest, brothers and sisters, go out there, and if you see plastics, get it BPA free. For those who don't know, get your plastics BPA free. It's the best that you can do in a situation when you're dealing with the devil, because he's trying to tamper everything. So the most you can do is trust that he's not putting it in these particular products that he's labeling. Okay, moving on. What's the dangers? BPA is an endocrine disruptor. It can imitate the body's hormones. Now we're talking. And it can interfere with the production, secretion, transport, action, function, and elimination of natural hormones. BPA can behave in a similar way to estrogen. Men, we're supposed to have testosterone. So what happens when you got estrogen coming into you chemically? Oh, man boobs. That's what happens. Oh, now you're starting to act a little bit more feminine. And reading on, it says, and other hormones in the human body. Infants and young children are said to be especially sensitive to effects of BPA. But I was born this way. Are you sure? Are you sure? Who knows? We're talking about chemically enhancing and changing the biology of people. And it says through the hormones. Well, what gets most affected when you're dealing with feminine and masculine principles? It's all hormone based. Research suggests it can impact human health in various ways. Okay, so now when you get this particular chemical that's implanted, transported in the body, it is now what do you call it? Like a fake hormone that transforms itself. It said it's going to do the opposite of what's already in you. So estrogen, estrogen, or it could turn into testosterone. It could turn into, this is why we're seeing the chemical imbalances of people. This is why you're seeing people losing their damn minds too. Hormones raging out of control. This is what is going on. A lot of things that's happening have been chemically introduced by the so-called white man. John P. Holden, this Obama science and technology advisor. He wrote a book, Eco Science. This book is like almost 800 pages. And this is what he endorsed. Now, mind you, he was under Obama. And now we got Obama 2.0, the Biden campaign. The Biden campaign, they're on the same page. Look what he wrote in this book. It says, adding a sterilant to drinking water or staple foods is a suggestion that seems to horrify people more than most proposals for involuntary fertility control. See, they've always been trying to control population, reduce population, control the biological functions of people. Okay. It says, indeed, this would pose some very difficult political, legal, and social questions, to say nothing of the technical problems. No such sterilant exists today, nor does one appear to be under development. To be acceptable, such a substance would have to meet some rather stiff requirements. It must be uniformly effective, despite widely varying doses received by individuals, and despite varying degrees of fertility and sensitivity among individuals. It must be free of dangerous or unpleasant side effects, and it must have no effect on members of the opposite sex, children, old people, pets, or livestock. See, he tries to lay out what it should and shouldn't do. But this book was written, I think, in the 70s. No, I think it was actually in the 60s. But now he's talking about what wasn't available at the time. But, you know, he's a devil. They had all of this. He's talking about it must be free of dangerous and unpleasant side effects. Why? Because then people are going to start questioning, what was the last thing that I ate? What did I do? Why am I breaking out? Why am I doing this? Similar to what you're seeing now with the with the jab and all these different side effects coming up, even amounting to death. It can't be traced back. You know, that's the devil for. He said it can't lead back to this. We can't say the sterilants did it for him. You know, but that's what they're up to. This has always been the plan. This is another section of the book. It didn't come out good, but it was still talking about more about fertility control and how they was going to attempt to and carry out, you know, the means of infertility. Okay, so they want to shut off the seed. So what's that mean? You know, another form of sexual function can happen. That's when the sodomite is living and doing what they need to do. This is out of Harvard, a nutrition source, talking about hormone levels. Okay, and talking about soy in particular. Reading on, it says hormone levels. Because soy can have estrogenic properties, its effects can vary depending on the existing level of hormones in the body. Why do I talk about soy? You know, even Esau calls effeminate guys soy boys. And then you start looking at the chemicals and the ingredients in many of the foods and many of the sauces and many of the different foods. Soy is in everything. Everything. I mean, let me calm down. I'm exaggerating, but it's in a lot of things, because somebody gonna say he said everything. He lying. Okay. It's in a lot of things. Okay, just start looking at your packaging and see how much soy is implanted, and you wonder why is soy in this? Why is soy in that? I don't understand. You know, then you see why there's such a push about the the vegan or the vegetarian lifestyle. Shout out to who's living that lifestyle. That's cool, you know. But why are they always pushing, you know, soy into the diet with a lot of the vegan cuisines? You know, tofu and all that other stuff. I mean, these things are laced with soy, and it only increases estrogen. So what's that going to do for the man? Man's in trouble over intaking too much soy. Then you're on the BPA. Then you're sitting up here looking at all of the innuendos that they got on TV that's turning you out. Then, I mean, we'll get to it. Premenopausal women have much higher circulating levels of estradiol, the major form of estrogen in the human body, than postmenopausal women. In this context, soy may act like an anti-estrogen, but among postmenopausal women, soy may act more like an estrogen. Also, women with breast cancer are classified with hormone type, either hormone type positive ER plus or PR plus, or hormone negative ER negative PR negative breast cancer. And these tumors respond differently to estrogen. So even for the women, it's letting it be known that soy can increase your chances of getting breast cancer. So you're wondering why you got breast cancer and you have no history about smoking or no history within your family of cancers or whatnot. You're saying, well, damn, how did I get breast cancer? Why am I getting elected to get a double mastectomy and get both of my breasts chopped off? Well, guess what? Could it possibly be that chemically the food that we've been raised on and eating and all of that has now got itself into the body? The brother that played Shaft, Richard Roundtree, he had breast cancer. I was shocked. I said, how did a man get breast cancer? Through these type of methods. Let's look at another chemical. Okay. Silence in the Science. Tyrone Hayes. This is a brother. Brother scientist out of Berkeley, I believe, California. I think he was actually doing his studies at Stanford. And he was studying hormones as it pertains to amphibians and things like that, right? And I'm gonna read on, and so I'm not gonna interject with the information. I'm just gonna try to put it out there. All right. So Silence in the Scientist. Tyrone Hayes on being targeted by herbicide firm Syngenta. All right. Atrazine is a weed killer, very similar to Roundup. You know, when you're hearing about the horror stories with Roundup and its cancer-causing chemicals, Roundup is the same company that made Agent Orange, that had all them Vietnamese deformed and dead from Vietnam when they sprayed Agent Orange. And guess who owns that? I'll let you think about it for a minute. Guess who owns Roundup? Still wondering? Think about GMOs and then we'll get back to it. GMOs and think about it. Starts with an M. All right. Moving on. Tyrone Hayes. Now, this is a transcript from the video interview. The video is about 45 minutes. You may be able to find it on YouTube. Look up Tyrone Hayes. I think you look up Tyrone Hayes. Amphibians turning gay. Research. But nonetheless, this is transcripts from it. I just pulled out some things for time's sake. It says, well, here, this is Tyrone Hayes, it's the brother. He says, well, here at Berkeley, I was a new assistant professor. I was already studying the effects of hormones and the effects of chemicals that interfere with hormones on amphibian development. And I was approached by the manufacturer and asked to study the effects of atrazine, the herbicide, on frogs. And after I discovered that it interfered with male development and caused males to turn into females, let me read that again. He said, after I discovered that it interfered with male development and caused males to turn into females, to develop eggs, the company tried to prevent me from publishing and from discussing that work with other scientists outside of their panel. Did you hear that? They utilized the weed killer atrazine, a herbicide, and they expose it to frogs. Now the frogs are eating, things that were produced around the atrazine, moving around in environments that were sprayed with atrazine. And it said he started noticing that the males started becoming feminine and even turning into females, even changing their biological functions to be able to develop eggs. But that's not it. Juan Gonzalez, who was doing the interview, he says, what was the process within the company? As you raised your findings, what was their immediate reaction to what you had come across? So here we got this particular company, that hired him, that said, well, we need to have some specialized research done to see what's going on with our new chemical. He came back and said, look, this is what I found. This is crazy. So Juan Gonzalez said, what was their reaction when you told them? He said, well, initially they seemed sort of supportive. We designed more studies, we designed more analysis, and they encouraged me to do more analysis. But as the further analysis just supported the original finding, they became less interested in moving forward very quickly. And eventually they moved to asking me to manipulate data or to misrepresent data. And ultimately they told me I could not publish or not talk about the data outside of their closed panel. So we see that they are involved in manipulating data, misrepresenting data, skewing, cooking the books. So when you're looking at these facts and figures that's being put out there about the jab and the C-19 and everything else, everything ain't all what it seems. Okay. because they've been known to hide and cover up when things ain't going right. Amy Goodman, she was part of the interviews. Her question, he said, and Professor Hayes, talk about exactly what you found. What are the abnormalities you found in frogs? The gender bending, the gender bending nature of this drug atrazine. He said, well, initially we found that the larynx or the voice box in exposed males didn't grow properly. So now they're getting more effeminate with their voice box. Okay. And this was an indication that the male hormone testosterone was not being produced at appropriate levels. And eventually we found that not only were these males demasculinized, you hear that all the time about the black community, don't we? Don't we hear about that amongst the Hispanic community? You know, why are the men being effeminate? Why are the men being demasculinized? Why are they being humiliated? You know, that's the same thing that's going on. Why is it the same thing that was happening with these frogs happening with our men? You think about it. It says, and eventually we found that not only were these males demasculinized or chemically castrated, but they also were starting to develop ovaries or starting to develop eggs. You know, and okay. It says, eventually we discovered that these males didn't breed properly. You know, some of these brothers now can't even produce seed. You know, why? That's a question we need to ask. What's going on? And eventually we discovered that these males didn't breed properly, that some of these males actually completely turned into females. So we had genetic males that were laying eggs and reproducing as females, and now we're starting to show that some of these males actually show, I guess, what we call homosexual behavior. They actually prefer to mate with other males. Let me read that again. He said, and now we're starting to show that some of these males actually show, I guess, what we call homosexual behavior. They actually prefer to mate with other males. And you say, well, that was just an experiment. They didn't really put that out there. You know, that's not on the market. Okay. As we wrap up, what's happening with atrazine today? Where does it stand? It's still on the market. We're still studying it. He said a number of studies are still coming out from around the world. One recent study has shown that male babies, that they ain't talking about frogs. One recent study has shown that male babies that are exposed to atrazine, it said in the uterus, their genitals didn't develop properly. Their penis doesn't develop properly, or they get microphallus. There are studies showing that sperm counts goes down when you're exposed to atrazine, and this is not just laboratory animals. Let me read that again. This is not just laboratory animals or animals in the wild. This is also humans. Did you hear that? Humans. We use the same hormones that animals do for our reproduction, and it's a big threat to environmental health and public health. Okay, why are they not talking about that? Bisphenol A, atrazine, infertility sterilants in the waters, soy in the food supplies. You see where I'm going with this? Let's move on. Oh, well, guess how it gets politicized now? Everybody knows about these little witches right here, right? Oh yeah, the BLM, her story. Oh, no longer his. You know, it's like that on Uncle Tom. Goofy bootleg preacher talking about at the end of these little political services that he's praying, and he says amen and a women when he closes out the prayer. I mean, this is how stupid this dude. Amen has nothing to do with gender, number one, but they try to put that out there just as a frame of thought of philosophy to be all inclusive. So just looking at BLM, okay. 2013, 3 radical black organizers. Isn't that something? Black Girl Magic, you know, Black Girls Rock. 2013, they had to get out there and get radical. Alicia Garza, Patrice Cullors, and Opal Tometi created a black-centered political will and movement building project called Black Lives Matter. It was in response to the acquittal of Trayvon Martin's murder, George Zimmerman. Oh, so it was just about Trayvon. Huh? You did that for Trayvon? Well, what happened? How come you're no longer saying George Floyd's name? What happened to that? Sandra Bland, all the rest I mentioned earlier. Nobody talking about them no more. Because why? It's been now flipped around, monopolized to be a political function solely for the Scrabble Game. Capitalized on the death of black men and women. See, that's why black lives don't matter to these witches at all. Black lives only matter when it becomes a capitalistic situation. Fact, case in point, we're gonna read a scripture on that. Sirach 10. Is it 10 or is it 6? Let's see. No, 13. All right. Sirach 13. And I'm gonna just get right to it. Verse 4. It says, if thou be for his profit, he will use thee, but if thou have nothing, he will forsake thee. So when you get a movement like this that can utilize the profiteering off of the death of our people, and then it gets backed up financially by George Soros, a fake Jew white man that gives up the money, this is where it ends up happening. So they build it up. Here they go. And they changed this too, because they did talk about how they wanted to distort the idea of the nuclear family, meaning what? Male and female relationships. This is their about us, which they have looked apparently have changed up, because I had the one back about a year and some change ago when it actually had a different wording, but it still leaves enough of an impact to see what happens. As organizers who work with everyday people, BLM members see and understand significant gaps in movement spaces and leadership. Black liberation movements in this country have created room, space, and leadership mostly for black, heterosexual, cisgender men. Here they go with another classification of gender. Cisgender, leaving women, queer, and transgender people and others out of their movement or in the background to move the work forward with little or no recognition. So here they are painting this old false narrative that behind these movements is the queers, the transgenders, and women who's pushing it, and they not getting no recognition, because the only one who's getting recognized is the black heterosexual cisgender men. So now they're already creating a gender divide. They're already creating a warfare in between genders by saying, what about us? We're the backbone. We're the ones pushing it with no proof. This is all foolishness, but they want recognition. Remember, they hide it not. Sodom wants in. Reading on. As a network, we have always recognized the need to center the leadership of women and queer and trans people. Always, to maximize our movement muscle and to be intentional about not replicating harmful practices that excluded so many in past movements for liberation. We made a commitment to placing those at the margins closer to the center. Oh, what did we read anything about the injustices that's happening to the Black and Hispanic community, Native American community? Did we read anything about an answer for the uncalled for deaths of our people? Did we read anything about the 50+ million aborted babies that's happened within the Black community alone? That they're out there for those Black lives? Did we read anything about that? No, we didn't read nothing about that. All we're talking about is what they want. The agenda gets pushed. As Black Lives Matter developed throughout 2013 and 2014, we utilized it as a platform and organizing tool. Other groups, organizations, and individuals used it to amplify anti-Black racism across the country. So there's the lie right there. It says other groups, organizations, and individuals used it to amplify anti-Black racism across the country. Didn't we just go to reading saying that they set this up as an answer to Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman not being convicted for it? Wasn't that supposedly about anti-Black or anti-Black racism? But now they're saying that wasn't our objective. There's some other people that got attached to it. That's what they were pushing. See the lie? That's what happens when you're fueled by Satan. Reading on, it says It always has showed up. Tamir Rice, Tanisha Anderson, Maya Hall, Walter Scott, Sandra Bland. These are names inherently important. The space that Black Lives Matter held and continues to hold helped propel the conversation around the state-sanctioned violence they experience. We particularly highlighted the egregious ways in which Black women, specifically Black trans women, are violated. See, they don't care about Black men. You know, let me get off of here, man, before I throw up. All right. Let's look at the forerunner of who really started, politically pushing the LGBT, Scrabble gang. Let me be clear. The Scrabble gang, who started pushing them out there? Obama. Yeah. You see here, this is his whole little political history with the Scrabble gang and his entanglements with that. Okay. 96, he was in support of domestic partnership, same-sex marriage. He was all with it. Okay. As he gets closer and closer into the political forums, now he's undecided. See, now he's starting to get turned out. Now he's starting to compromise. Get to 2004. Now he's supporting civil unions and civil rights for gays and lesbians. So now he's got to be all-inclusive. Same thing in 2004. Obama opposes the Federal Defense of Marriage Act while running for U.S. Senate seat in Illinois. He also opposes same-sex marriage. So 2004, he was still trying to hold on. But guess what? He had to fall under order and political pressure. You want in? You want to be part of Babylon? You want to be the king? Guess what? You're going to have to drink of the wine. 2006, now he's questioning his own opposition to same-sex marriage. 2007, during the Democratic primary, Obama reaffirmed support of strong civil unions. 2008, he gets elected, or he gets as a candidate. He pledges to repeal DOMA, don't ask and don't tell, which banned the service of openly gay troops in the U.S. military. So he said, look, there used to be a law that says don't ask, don't tell. If you was in the military, we ain't even talking about it. We can't, or we're going to ask you. You need to tell us so that we can make a right decision on whether or not we're going to let you in. He said, if I get in, we're going to stop that screening process. There's not going to be no more don't ask, don't tell. So that was his promise. 2009, he gets elected. Obviously, he's in. First year, Obama signs the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Act, hate crimes. So thank you, Obama, because now if you speak anything against the Scrabble gang in the community, it's hate speech. You're in the cancel culture. They shutting you down. They flagging you. They're suspending you. You go into Facebook jail, so forth and so on. You now become an enemy of the state, thanks to your old heathen leader, Obama. October 2010, Obama starts evolving on gay marriage. See how it becomes part of evolution? You see how the change? See the concept about creation? That's where it goes back to. Remember I said earlier, we're talking about chemically enhancing, creating something new? Where they actually have a hand in doing so, that then gets nourished through idea, philosophy, education, entertainment, everything else, law. So now he's in a part of this new evolution. Now Obama signs a bill repealing the don't ask, don't tell. So he made good on his promise 2 years later, 2011. He instructs the Justice Department to stop defending DOMA in court, saying that he believes it's unconstitutional. He said, we're not even talking about it no more. It goes against the Constitution. 2012, Obama becomes the first president to support same-sex marriage. There we go. So he's the first one, went on record. That's why so-called black folks and Hispanics were so pissed off at Obama. They said, man, you did more for the Sodomites than you did for us. And he always kind of backtrack and slide back and say, I did this for black folk. I did it. But you didn't do a damn thing. Besides, yes, we can. Who were you talking to? Wasn't talking to us because we surely couldn't. Ain't nothing changed. Obama signs an executive order protecting LGBT employees working for government contractors. So more protections. 2014, his administration interprets the Civil Rights Act as supportive of LGBT rights. So now in 2014, he incorporates and says the same struggle of the civil rights movement that the blacks, Hispanics, and the Native Americans went through all throughout their tenure, 400 years plus. Listen, it's the equivalent of what the Scrabble gang is going through. January 2015, Obama becomes the first president to use the word transgender in the State of the Union. So now they become popular language in worldview, thanks to him. Obama says that that conversion therapy for minors should be banned. So they had conversion therapy, going through counseling, going through mental, examinations and things of that nature to get into the mind and the philosophy and the spirit into these people. He said, no, that's banned. You leave them people to be, let it flow. The spirit of Sodom must prevail. And here goes his buddy. That's why I said it's 2.0. 2.0 of the Biden campaign. First day, he comes in. Uncle Joe, Glass Joe, he says Biden calls for LGBTQ protections and day one executive order angering conservatives. So here we see on his first day in office, President Joe Biden, comes in with sweeping executive orders, making it clear that gay and transgender people are protected against the discrimination in the workplace and schools, healthcare, and all of that, right? Then he drops down and says the executive order calls on agencies across the federal government to review existing regulations and policies that prohibit sexual discrimination and to revise them as necessary to clarify that sex includes sexual orientation, gender identity. Notice the first thing he says, quote, children should be able to learn without worrying about whether they will be denied across the access to the restroom, the locker room, and school sports. Why is that the first form of thought? Remember, compulsory education of the children, that was one of the things they was going to implement. So who are they targeting? Who are they looking at? Children. Okay. Next generation coming up. This is going to be the norm. Adults should be able to learn and earn a living and pursue vocation, knowing that they will not be fired, demoted, or mistreated because of whom they go home to or because of how they dress does not conform to sex-based stereotypes. Well, I can't tell because guess what? There's been a number of the Scrabble game that's been put into political offices to help sway the minds and the laws of the people. We'll see. Let's move on. Biden opens for a major push for LGBTQ. Whoa, how dare they try to institute my damn initials in there? He's going for the Scrabble game. So he said now a major push rights abroad. So as we see, the so-called white man being the earth being given into his hands, now he wants to push this ideology. He's putting the spirit of Sodom all across the world. It's not just America. Babylon, spiritual Sodom, Egypt is going to affect the world. He's opening for a major push for everywhere for this spirit to go out there, for this thing to be promoted. It says in his first foreign policy speech, Biden announced Thursday he was ordering all U.S. government agencies active abroad to promote, remember, increased homosexuality, promote the rights of gays, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, and queer people, and to come up with plans within 180 days. He said, you got 6 months to get it together. And one of the things that he said was, amongst his 200 plus member staff, he said anybody that shows any disrespect will be fired on the spot. Who was he trying to protect with that language? Maybe them. Biden selects transgender doctor Rachel Levine as assistant health secretary. So first thing he does, throw a tranny doctor in there. Can you imagine that you sitting in the doctor's office and this dude walks in there and says, what's wrong? You'll be looking at him like, what's wrong with you? What are you talking about? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with you? How can I help you? I don't think you can. I'm going to be leaving now, but this is who he's electing and saying he's going to be the one that tells you about the standards of health. What's okay? What isn't okay? What's good for the body? What isn't good for the body? Can you trust that? I think not. Moving on. 2/3 of the troops are supporting allowing transgender service members in the military. Pentagon study finds. So now we're even seeing the big bad military of America now has been compromised to where 2/3 of the troops are saying, yeah, I got no problem with a tranny, strapped up next to me. I got no problem with the stud over here doing this or the gay dude, running effeminate down the street. I mean, come on. 2/3. Ironic that number. Right? According to the scriptures, Zechariah 13:8, 2/3 got to go. So let's move on. Look at this. This is going to become the norm. WWE wrestling vet Gabby Tough. Can you imagine? And I remember being young watching wrestling, and now that I'm older and I'm sitting back, I'm like, damn, why the hell was I watching that? Watching dudes with boots on and some elbow pads and they greased up, running down with some Speedos on, beating up each other and falling on the ground. That was clearly gay. just the imagery that they putting out there. But it's masked as these are tough guys. You know, this is the epitome of masculinity, the highest level of sports, entertainment, as WWE calls it. I don't know who this guy is, but he is apparently a former WWE wrestler that probably some of you dudes who came up on wrestling may know of him, and probably are tripping like, damn, I used to like watching him. Oh, get him. Now he's her. Look at him. He's over here in the corner. That's his former image. That's what he used to look like, beard and all, swelled up, tats. Now he got, fake boobs, a wig on, and this is the confusion that now is going to be offered to America. This is the transformation. What was once masculine, dealing with military, dealing with fighting and war, defending country. Now it's like, okay, any and all can come on in. WWE wrestling vet Gabby Tuff, 42, shares his, and this is the confusion. Good Lord. She is not sexually active with her wife, Priscilla, after coming out as a transgender woman. Can you imagine? And this is him and his wife. This is him when he was normal. Now he's with his wife. And the fact of the matter is that his wife is staying with him. His wife is staying with him. And they share a daughter, 9 years old. Now, if you are gay, trans, I don't understand how you even got it up to be able to have this daughter. How do we see these dudes in these down low relationships, man, having children and all of that? How are you able to be sexually motivated and attracted to a woman if you're gay, trans? I mean, something ain't right. Okay, he wrestled in WWE from 2007 to 2014. So he had a 7-year career. So he wasn't like he was some scrub. He had a career in there. So whoever this dude is, he came out the closet now. It ain't no different than Bruce Jenner. And I believe he got compromised because when he had that damn accident and he killed that woman, before you know it, they made him go full blown trans. He had to be the poster boy for the transformation of the athlete, the former tough guy. Now you got to wear lipstick and wigs and everything else. And they had him on magazines. He was hosting ESPN sports awards. All of that stuff. Now you don't see him no more. So now you're gonna see a whole new transformation of poster people for the movement. Transgender service members react to Biden reversing military ban with joy, relief. A great weight was lifted off our shoulders. See what Uncle Joe did? And you niggas are still waiting for yours. You still waiting for your acknowledgement. What's your acknowledgement? A damn stimulus check? That's still just a rumor because it ain't been approved yet. It ain't in the mail. Didn't he say soon as I'm in, checks is coming in the mail? Lie number one. But y'all was so desperate to get some change. You want something else. He's in there. Same devil, same thing, same program. Moving on. And that's a female, mind you. Oh. Da, 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 da. You're loving it, aren't you? Isn't that what they singing? Da, 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 da. I'm loving it. I'm not loving it. Burger King, Ronald McDonald kissing a new ad to celebrate Helsinki Pride. This is what they did last year in Finland. They said Burger King's last week unveiled a poster ahead of Finland's Pride celebrations, and passerbys may have been startled to see it bearing the mascot of its biggest rival, McDonald's. Posters and billboard signs throughout Finland featured the Burger King, the chain's mascot, kissing Ronald McDonald. Together, their heads form a heart shape next to the name of the artwork, Love Conquers All. Look at this. Love is keeping of the commandments. This is blasphemy right in our faces. But this is what they promote. This is what they're pushing. When are you Negroes going to put down the chicken nuggets and put down the burger, the Whoppers, and stand on something and say, you know what? If this is what they're supporting, this is where my money's going to, this is what they're going to promote, I'm cool. I don't need it. Because you know what? McDonald's was the one that was revolutionized with attracting marketing to the kids when they opened up McDonald's Playland and did all the little characters with Ronald McDonald and Grimace and the Hamburglar and all of that. So they still are focusing in on concentrating on attacking the children. Think about it. I'm not loving it. Oh, Unholy Row over church's play, which portrays Jesus as a transgender woman who refers to God as mom. Yeah, you seen that. Play portraying Jesus as a transgender woman to be performed in church. It is much to the fury of critics who say the play is deeply offensive, Bishop of Manchester, David Walker, will not block the staging of the gospel according to Jesus, Queen of Heaven. Okay, this is the blasphemy. This is what happens when you allow this foolishness to go on. Okay? The Church of England was promoting it. Look at this. Moving on. Church's woke advert featuring a bearded Jesus with women's breasts and makeup sparks outrage. There he goes down here. Good thing it's a fake image. That's Caesar Borgia. But look at the kids though. Little dark-skinned girl at the end of the rainbow. Who knows? He might be a little 10 tribe cat. But look what they doing. Drawing artwork of Yahweh Shai being a tranny. I mean, the blasphemy, the madness that they're doing. Church of Iceland doing this. Calling it the woke church. The woke church. Can you hear that? Look what they're doing in the military. They're wearing heels. You know, this is part of their drills talking about, you know, a movement to feel the abuses of battered women or something like that. Just in case you think this is a Photoshop picture, here you go. Temple University, Army, ROTC, cadets and cadre put on their favorite pair of high heels and marched in temples, walk a mile in her shoes. Walk a mile in her shoes to raise awareness of sexual assault against women. So now the troops is wearing heels, you know, to make a statement of their support. Look at hands on their hips and all of that. I mean, this is ridiculous. Oh, but guess what? Compulsory education for the children, it don't stop. Drag queen story time, they out. I mean, all of these creatures and these demons is out, wanting to read stories, sitting in the libraries, spending their time with your kids, letting them sit on their laps and doing all of that. This is what they're promoting. This is what they're pushing. Now look at this. Violet Chachki is a male drag queen and winner of season 7 of RuPaul's Drag Race. So this dude won the drag race, you know. But look who he's posing with. The Instagram post has since been deleted. However, the child is seen dressed in drag standing next to Violet Chachki, an adult male with a tiny piece of cloth covering his genitals. This is a little boy in a dress standing next to a grown man butt naked with some heels on. And you telling me that that's not promoting pedophilia? That's not promoting fornication, adultery, sodomy, all of the above? And this is okay? It says the post has been deleted. It didn't say banned. It didn't say blocked. You know, Instagram didn't stop it. He deleted it because of the heat that was coming down. Thinking like, oh, everybody should be ready for this. No, maybe not. Everybody wasn't ready yet. So they deleted it. But this is what they promote. This is what they're allowing. How about this for the kids? I need a new butt. Oh, why is it always some butt play going on? You know, with the books now, the comic books, the TV, the cartoons, Nickelodeon, all of that. Okay. A young boy suddenly notices a big problem. His butt has a huge crack. He sets off to find a new one. Will he choose an armor-plated butt, a rocket butt, a robot butt? Find out this quirky tale featuring hilarious rhymes and delightful illustrations. Children and parents will love this book. Oh, both of y'all gonna love it, huh? No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Isn't that something? Now, imagine this. The dichotomy of this, where they're putting this out in the kids, but the women is out there really doing it. And they got dudes doing it. Gay dudes out there getting damn butt implants and butt shots, and the sisters out there doing the same thing. This is art imitating life. How about the gymnasiums? You read about it in the book of Maccabees. We'll talk about men going in, getting licenses to be like the heathen, going to work out in the gymnasiums. No offense to those who's out there, they're workout freaks, love the gym. But guess what? The truth is the truth. The original form and meaning of gymnasium is to exercise or to train. However, naked, coming from the word gymnos. So in essence, gymnasium means to exercise naked. That's what they was doing out there in Greece. This is why you see the gay bathhouses. You see all of the flattering that goes on in the gyms. Dudes running around here with the smallest of shirts on, flexing, looking in the mirror. Sisters out here dressed inappropriately, looking like you ain't got no business in the gym. You know, you go in there so that you can get some good little footage for the gram and thirst trap some dudes, and vice versa. The dudes that's thirst trapping other dudes and females. It's become another place of harlotry. Okay. Record number of LGBTQ candidates won in November. New data reveals 55% rate. So they're coming up. I can't tell the discrimination. I can't see where they're being held back. They're going to be dictating policy. They're in. Gloria Steinem, the CIA's most world's most famous feminist. Do some study on her. Miss Magazine. You know how she capitalized utilizing the feminist movement and corralled in black women to get seduced into this, and that's where you get back into the original forms of delaying the marriages, not encouraging to have kids, pushing out the imagery for women to be the women empowerment. But guess who was behind it? The CIA, and they used this witch to do it. And this was the cover of her first magazine, Miss Magazine. Okay, and you see the goddess on here, Kali Ma, the goddess, the divine. You hear those words in the so-called conscious community and all of that. The divine mother, the dark mother. They also call her the black mother, the terrible mother. She is the Hindu goddess of time, creation, preservation, and destruction. As fearsome as she may appear, she is the most compassionate goddess of them all. Isn't that nice? But see, on her 8 arms, she got the phone, she got the mirror, she got the iron, the typewriter. She cooking, she doing it all. The woman, there's no stopping her. She can do everything. But this is all propaganda that was propagated by the CIA and Gloria Steinem. And guess who bought into it, hook, line, and sinker, to the point to where now we can't even have a cohesive family units no more, because women want to step out there and be on their 1-2 and say, I can do it all without you. Okay, that hasn't worked. We've accepted and the curses have gotten us in positions now to where we're living in housing communities to where the man is not allowed to be there, or that benefit, that Section 8, is getting stripped. This is what's happening now. All right, I'm close to closing it out. Where have all the black men gone? This is an article talking about how the ratio of black men to black women is. Nationally, it's 88 black males to every 100 black women, and that's talking about we ain't even talking about the sodomites. It's even lower than that. So sisters, you're gonna have to think about compromising with some of these men out here, because the count is low, despite what Kevin Samuels is talking about. But here we see mass incarceration, high mortality, gender, all of these are playing a part. So the black family is still continually being destroyed. I was gonna go here, but for time's sake, I'm gonna come back and do this one. I'm gonna come back and share a clip from the show on Netflix. I'm gonna come back for that one. I'm gonna do that separately. All right, but here we see cross-dressing. All right, and how that was impacted since the 18th century. It says even before the 20th century, transvestism and cross-dressing among men were associated with the act of sodomy. Okay, so when you're seeing Young Thug and all these other cats wearing dresses and painting their fingernails and doing all that, that's all associated with sodomy, regardless of what they're talking about or how tough they're talking on their albums. By the 18th century, many cities in Europe had developed small but secret homosexual subcultures. London's homosexual subculture was based around inns and public houses where mollies congregated. Many of the mollies wore women's clothing as both a form of self-identification and as a means of attracting sexual partners. They wore gowns, petticoats, headcloths, fine lace shoes, fur blow scarves, and masks, and some riding hoods, where some dressed like milkmaids and others shepherd dresses with green hats, waistcoats, and petticoats, and others had their faces patched and painted. Okay, so why did I bring this up? Because in the book of Sirach 19 and 29, it says, a man may be known by his look, and one that hath understanding by his countenance. When thou meetest him, a man's attire and excessive laughter and gait show what he is. A gait is even how a man walks. So we're seeing how even the outward appearance has been fashioned after the sodomite culture. Okay, it's talking about cross-dressing. That was happening. All right, but it wasn't for fashion. It wasn't trying to be different. It was because it was always built around sexual orientation. You didn't dress a certain way because you knew that was going to associate you with sodomy. Okay, masculinity and lesbian dress. In the late 19th and earlier 20th century, the adoption of male dress was a means for many women. The adoption of male dress was a means for many women, 19th and 20th centuries, including many lesbians, to protest including many lesbians. So, sisters, when we read in Deuteronomy 22:5, don't turn your nose up when we say women shouldn't be wearing pants. Because if you see here, late 19th, 20th century, this was an adaptation to dress like men, which included the lesbians. Okay. To protest the status of women in the roles assigned. And it goes back even further than that, but we'll talk about that on another time. Roles assigned then by patriarchal societies. Cross-dressing had been, so it was showing you as a form of rebelliousness to go against the patriarchal society. Well, the Bible is a patriarchal book. That's the only way that you're showing rebelliousness is first outwardly through your dress. Cross-dressing had been and continue to be utilized by women to allow them to pass as men and be accepted. Some, like writer George Sand and painter Rosa Bonheur, utilized the methods in order to have their professional work be taken seriously. The period between the two world wars saw a rise in lesbian visibility. The typical masculinized lesbian dress of the period is typified by the wing collar, monocle, and men's jacket worn by Lady Una Trowbridge, lover Radcliffe Hall, author of The Well of Loneliness. In a portrait by Romaine Brooks, in America, lesbian performers such as May Rainey and Gladys Bentley wore men's top hat and tails to express their identity, while bisexual film stars Greta Garbo and Marlene Dietrich wore masculine clothes both on and off screen. Okay. Now check this out. Throughout the 20th century, many of the top couture fashion designers were gay, even though social pressure called for them to keep their sexuality quiet, if not secret. Indeed, many of the greatest names in 20th century fashion were gay or bisexual, including such figures as Christian Dior, Cristobal Balenciaga, Yves Saint Laurent, Norman Hartnell, Halston, Rudy Gernreich, who was one of the founding members of the first American homophile organization, the Mattachine Society, Calvin Klein, and Gianni Versace. Did you hear about these same brands being rapped about? Do you hear about it when you see these athletes being interviewed and they looking weird walking down the aisle and walking down the hallways going to the locker room, and you saying what are they wearing? Oh, it's Balenciaga, man. This is Christian Dior. This is Versace, Calvin Klein. Didn't Pop Smoke, and not talking about the dead, but wasn't one of his biggest songs called Dior? And then you're wondering where they're getting it from. So when the homosexuals are your designers, when your choice is to dress like a fag, I mean, what are you expecting? Okay. This is the agenda. This is the essence of the Scrabble game. This is where you see this whole thing going. Okay. This is why we have to make a conscious effort to awake out of the sleep, that's been afforded to us, that's been put into our faces. The agenda is real, y'all. The agenda is real. You see that it goes beyond just, political influence, outside influence through marches and all that other stuff. We're talking chemically. I didn't even talk about the effects psychologically that molestation happens, between male, female, that runs rampant. I had an article I meant to share today about these nuns in Germany. They was pimping out the boys to politicians and to the the clergy as young as 5 years old. So can you imagine? What does that do to a female? That was raped by her uncle or molested by the babysitter or whoever at 3 and 4 years old. What's that going to do to her psychologically and her thoughts about a man? Right? That's going to reverse her thoughts about her comfortability being around a man. What about a boy who gets raped or molested by the teacher, the best friend or whatever, the cousin, the uncle? And in his mind, sexual gratification came at the hands of another man. That's the only way that I know. Well, guess what? That's going to be your continued thought moving forward in life. All of this stuff is all part of how this indoctrination of thought happens throughout time. Okay, and why we're in the position that we're in, and how the spirit of Sodom has risen to the top. They're talking about the cream rising to the top. Not in this case. Not that cream. Okay, so I'm gonna end it there, man. I'm gonna end it there. Appreciate y'all for tuning in with me. Make sure you continually support the channel. Subscribe, share. Let your brothers and sisters know. Share it on whatever platform that you got. Again, giving all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High Yahweh and His Son. Hamashiach Yahweh Shai. With that, I'm gonna close out and end it there. All right. Shalom.